All right, hey guys, everybody, how's it going? This is Blake,
And Jackson.
and it is August 11th, 2022.
Woo!
Woo! Yeah, summer is here. It has been here. It's been hot. It's been uncomfortably humid outside. What else is new?
It's a
Uh,
hot and wet summer.
exactly. But not enough wet in the ways I'd want it to be. But oh well.
There's way
Beggars
too
can't be
much
choosers.
humidity, in my opinion.
Yes, I don't like the air being wet, where you can stay hydrated just by breathing.
Yeah, it's like you don't need to like blink to like make sure your eyes are wet because you just it's
That
already
is
so
true.
wet.
That is true. I got into a staring contest with someone at Boy Scout camp one time because it had just rained like earlier that morning or the night before, and
Hmm.
I shit you not, I held my eyes open for like 7 minutes straight because it was that humid in the air.
Right.
It was freaking crazy. Uh,
Yeah, no, it sucks when it's like that. It's really nasty and sticky outside.
yeah, like everything's like the air is sticking to your skin, and
Yeah.
your hands never get not clammy. At least for me, at least that's what it was like in Baton Rouge and New
My,
Orleans.
my hands are always clammy. I'm just
Yeah. But anyway, well, what have you been up to? You went on a vacation, right?
I did. I went to Florida. I didn't see Florida Man, although I heard he got FBI raided. So there's that. I also, on my other show, we were talking not last week before last, about how there's an island in Florida, I think it's in the Everglades, that has a bunch of monkeys, all of which are infected with like herpes.
I've heard about that. I've heard about that island, but this was
Yeah.
just like it's like 100 monkeys, something like that.
Yeah, and they all have, it's like
Like Hep
rhesus
C.
macaques or oh yeah, maybe it's hepatitis. Yeah, maybe that's what it
Yeah,
is.
I think they have Hep C, dude.
But yeah, they all have hepatitis. They're all, on this island, and apparently they've like actually some of them have reached the mainland. So,
Oh my gosh, no.
because of
Last thing
course
Florida
Florida.
needs is monkey. Exactly. The last thing Florida needs to add to its craziness is monkeys.
Hepatitis bearing monkeys. Yeah.
They've already got freaking pythons and alligators and crocodiles.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And but we were in the far north part. We came nowhere near like the swampy bits. We were on the beach the whole time, pretty much. So
Like Western Florida, like in the Gulf, or like Eastern Florida in the Atlantic.
well, we went to Panama City, Pensacola, Jacksonville. So we were on Gulf side first because we went to Panama City. That was our first stop. So that's Gulf
Yeah,
side.
PCB.
And then we drove all the way to Jacksonville, which is Neptune Beach is the closest to Jacksonville, and that's on the Atlantic side. And we also went to Cocoa Beach, which is also Atlantic side. It's like 2 hours south. Then we went back across to Pensacola, and then Milton, and then just back home. We actually took I-10 all the way back, so I was kind of nostalgic for the Louisiana trip, the Louisiana part of I-10, because you go through New Orleans, then you go all the way down to through Baton Rouge, so past LSU where we went, and then it's really just the trip that I took 1,000 times. At that point, once you get to Baton Rouge, it's like, oh, I could drive the rest of the way with my eyes closed. I know where I
Yeah,
am.
exactly. Like Shreveport, Bossier down to Baton Rouge is a very dull 3 hours.
Yeah, I really forgotten just how long it felt. Like just getting. The funny thing about it is, it takes an hour to get from like Baton Rouge to Opelousas, and I feel like it shouldn't. But you have
Yeah,
to go
yeah.
between like 55 and 60 the whole way, basically.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. All the major cities between Shreveport, Bossier, and Baton Rouge are all roughly an hour apart. So it's like
Yeah.
roughly an hour to like the Alexandria area, roughly an hour to
Well, Natchitoches, then
Natchitoches,
Alexandria, then
Yeah.
Opelousas. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it shouldn't, because you go like 75, 80, and it takes about an hour to get to Natchitoches and then Alexandria, and then from Alexandria to Opelousas. But then like Opelousas to Baton Rouge, it's really slow because you have to
Yeah.
go slow the whole time. You can't go,
Yeah.
and there are cops everywhere in all those little podunk towns just waiting.
That is
for
very
you.
true. Yeah.
Kind of sucks. It's a boring trip. But we had fun. I saw a lot of cool stuff. So how about you?
That's cool. I haven't been up to too much. I'm still been trying to get things sorted with my classes for the fall. So I said I changed my major
Yeah. Hmm.
from biochemistry to cellular molecular biology. Well, I talked to my advisor, and she convinced me to change it back. So
Wait, really?
yeah. So things should be back to normal. Hopefully, they'll actually offer the classes like they said they would, or at least like where I can view them at a decent time.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I'll probably take like a biochemistry lab, and then like I don't know, maybe like probably gonna have to take my language credits. I think I have one more gen ed left, so I may take like another psychology course or something like that.
I it felt like a really long time to get through all the gen eds. For me, it felt like that. But then for the last like 3 semesters or so, it was just like almost straight biology classes. Like I'd be
Right.
taking 5 biology classes and then like one other class, an elective or something. And it just
Yeah.
it really grinds you down, you know.
Oh, I saw. I accidentally stumbled across the most like traumatic, like horrific movie I've ever seen.
What?
So I was looking for no, I don't remember what movie I was originally looking for, but I was looking for some movie that had the word night in its title, like night as in like the opposite of day.
Okay.
And I came across this Australian movie called Nightingale, which even though it came out in 2018, it looks like it had like the budget to make it look like a movie from about like 2009.
Okay.
And so like Australia was like a prison colony, right?
Sure.
So like
Originally, yeah. Mhm.
so it takes place in some nondescript time in the 1800s. From what I could tell, judging by like the uniforms and like the guns they were using, it was like early 1800s, so like the first half. So let's say like 1830, for example. And so basically, this takes place not in just Australia, but on Tasmania, or as I like to call it, the Australia of Australia, where or Australia's Florida, if you will. So things are even crazier down in Tasmania. Everyone thinks Tasmania is full of crazy rednecks, which it kind of is. But there's this lady who is a prisoner who on this. I guess it's like a sort of like a forward outpost, like of like a colony, because like there's still a bunch of Aborigines people on
Mhm.
this island or this part of the island, and so she is like. She has a husband. I don't think they're officially married, but they have a child. And there's this like captain uh, who runs like the British fort nearby, and
Mhm.
she's Irish. Her husband's Irish. There's a lot of Irish and Scottish like prisoners working on these like work camps, and not work camps, but like homesteads, more like. And
Okay.
they have to look. They have to suck up to these British like English uh, colonial forces. And so basically, also, so anyone listening right now, if you have a problem or a traumatic experience dealing with SA, for those who don't know what SA is, it's a rhymes with a textual occult.
Oh.
Um, yeah, I'd skip far forward about a good 10 minutes. Anyway, so she was supposed to be free like 3 months ago, right?
Mhm.
And she talks to the captain, and the captain is about to take a trip up to like the nearest like larger city where there's like actually like civilized people, so that he could like talk about getting a promotion.
Mhm.
And basically like an admiral or whatever shows up and is like, you're not cutting it, your men are out of whack. Like, is all to be fair, he's given like the most like podunk like idiotic like men that have to serve under him. And so like anyway, so he asked this lady, her name is Claire, to come out. This is like the main character, and he asks her to come out and sing for the new men. She sings, but eventually she ends up back at his like cabin or whatever, um, and he pays her to sing him another song. Then after that, I'll just cut to the chase. He like rapes her, and which you later find out has been happening for months. And so she gets back to the cabin, and her husband is like, where did this mark come from? Like, did that dude freaking hurt you again? And then he's like, you know what? I'm going to talk. We shouldn't even be here. We were both supposed to be free 3 months ago. I'm going to talk to him tomorrow. And so he talks to him. He asks him nicely, and then like he confronts him like alone with only like two other guys, like when he's like drunk, he's been drinking, and Irish people when they're drunk temper, it does not go very well. So he like punches this dude, and he's like, "Oh shit, I messed up big time, so I need to like leave, like now." And so he is back home with Claire and the baby, and they're packing up so they could run away in the night. And while this happens, um, that evil captain dude that like raped his wife comes in with like two other like cronies, two other like regular soldiers, and uh, eventually the Irish dude that's like her husband like tries to like shoot them, and then they're like they had wrestled the gun away from him, and basically they make him watch as like two of them rape his wife, and then the baby won't stop crying, so someone fucking kills the baby. They end up shooting the husband and then just like hitting her on the head, thinking they killed her. And so she spends the rest of the movie tracking these people down as they go through the jungle to like go to this nearest town. And she has an Aboriginal tracker, and they end up. His name was Billy. They end up connecting like over like hardships and whatnot because he feels like a pawn because basically he's like a tracker. So like the British pay him to take him to other Aborigines people so that they could gun them all down. And you later find out later on in the movie, like while he's talking to some other like essentially slaves. So like at this time period, like the treatment of Aborigines people was something in between like colonialism towards like Africans like on the continent of Africa, like as slaves, but also they treat them as like runaways. Like it's sort of like the American South, but it's strange. Anyway, so he ends up finding out that his entire people got massacred, and so when he and Claire make it to that next town over, by this point, Claire has successfully isolated one of the men that was there that night that her husband died and her baby died. And it's funny, it's not even the one that raped her. It was like the least like unchill of all of them, and she like stabs him 30 times and beats his head in with a rifle, which is pretty brutal. And eventually Billy puts on this like traditional like war paint, and he goes to the like hotel or lodging that other rapist guy and the captain is at, and he kills them both with fucking spears, which is insane. Billy gets shot, and the movie ends with both of them looking out over the ocean, and it's very bittersweet. Like it's not a very satisfying ending. Like I counted there are a total of 3 rape scenes and 5 rapes in that movie, and like I've heard the phrase said before. There's some quote by someone who I can't remember. Art is supposed to comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfortable. I found out that I'm maybe a little bit too comfortable because I was very disturbed by this fucking movie.
Well, I feel like you should be. You should be disturbed by such horrible scenes.
Yeah, it's like they're massacring people, and there's just a bunch of just pillaging and rape. It's terrible.
That kind of reminds me of. Have you ever seen Wind River?
I have not, but I think I've heard of that movie.
Jeremy Renner, Elizabeth Olsen. It's really good.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
It's a crime mystery drama that occurs on a Native American reservation. It's really good. I thought it was really interesting, but kind of reminds me of that. Very interesting. Very interesting.
But yeah, so that was like literally like I get to like the first like rape scene, and I'm like, okay, this I like because like I looked at it like on the like how it'll warn you before a movie like on Netflix, it'll like tell you in the top, it's like, hey, just let you know this is what you're getting into, right? And it says it's like there are scenes of sexual assault including rape, and I'm like, okay. And then like after the second one, I'm just like, okay, this is there. Please tell me there's no more. This is I never had a cap for how much rape I wanted to see or could tolerate in a movie, but this is too much. And then after the third one, I'm like, well, honestly, after the first one, I was so emotionally distressed that like I didn't even want to keep watching the movie. But I was so hell bent on there hopefully being some kind of payoff, which there is. Like all of the 3 bad dudes like die, but that still doesn't. It still doesn't make you feel good because that this still happened to tens of thousands of other people.
Right. Yeah, that's it's like at what point is it just gratuitous? Like it doesn't further the plot anymore. You're just doing it for your own stylistic effect. And it's like, okay, we get it. It's terrible. It's awful. We understand.
White
please,
man bad. Yeah.
Move on, please. We get it. Yeah, that's how I feel.
Yeah, and it's crazy because as she's traveling out to the jungle, there's all these other like slave workers she keeps running into that are there like building roads. And anytime like the the Aborigines guy Billy, who's her tracker, like avoids these people because obviously if they see like a white woman and a black man, like um, apparently in this time period in this country, if they see a white woman and an Aborigines man together, they're going to lynch the Aborigines man and they're going to rape the white woman. So she just rides by them really quickly on her horse while the Aborigines guy Billy avoids them, and literally every time she is left alone, some crazy white dude ends up approaching her, acting like that, he's gonna rape her, and then Billy like comes in and like fucking like clocks their ass. But anyway,
Jesus.
yeah,
Freaking yikes.
it's a crazy movie.
That
Anyway,
sounds like a crazy movie.
so unless you have anything else you wanted to add, we've got quite a few interesting stories to jump into today.
No, yeah, we can go to the stories now.
Yeah.
Jesus. All right. China fires missiles near Taiwan following Pelosi visit.
So yeah. So China fired about way too many missiles over the land of Taiwan. So they fired some. It bears mentioning that when they say over Taiwan, that they, I guess, were test firing these missiles, obviously to see if they could hit Taiwan. And they fired them over the island where they could have at any point malfunctioned and killed a bunch of people, and shot into the sea to the east of Taiwan. So the northeast, the east, and then the south, or the southeast and the south. And there's, I don't know, it's very weird because like that's it. It looks like it's about 20 missiles. About 20 missiles they fired over the island of Taiwan just to sort of like flex on them. And this is all due to fucking Nancy Pelosi, of all people, visiting Taiwan on a diplomatic mission. China really seems to not like America showing any support for that, territory of theirs, or country, depending on how you look at it.
Well, right now it's not a Chinese-owned territory yet. Unlike Hong Kong is owned by China now. But yeah, whack, very whack.
Yeah, there's been a lot of dog whistling lately I've seen over whether or not, like, basically saying, like, we would go to war if China were to do something about Taiwan, like, militarily.
Yeah, we have a treaty to protect Taiwan, which is why when the war between Russia and Ukraine, really escalated, I guess. I was going to say broke out, but really escalated. People were like, China's probably eyeing Taiwan right now for the same purpose. The only difference is we don't have, Ukraine's not NATO yet, and Taiwan, and we don't have the same sort of diplomatic ties to Ukraine that we have to Taiwan. And now that Russia has thoroughly gotten its butt whooped, with more in the coming future, they're not doing so great. And I think I would hope at this point that China's not still eyeing Taiwan to the same extent, but it's China, so they probably are.
Yeah, I mean, I sent you something literally within like the first like week of Russia's escalation this past year, and I was like, China had like a freaking squadron of fighter jets that flew too close into their territory. So like they've definitely been testing the waters lately. But then again, how do we know this isn't the type of like positing that like North Korea does with like the West does something North Korea doesn't like, and North Korea responds by testing more missiles or whatever. Like, I mean, this could just be like fear mongering.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. It's North Korea really doesn't have much in the way of defense. We have the 7th Fleet, isn't it?
This is the 7th Fleet. The 7th Fleet in the fucking Gulf of whatever, watching over Korea, making sure that they don't, start strangling each other.
Of very large guns pointed towards North Korea. So, yeah. Whack. Well, okay. Yeah. Very interesting.
And so the next 2 stories, so you can just read the second one with Alex Jones because it's an update on the first one.
Alex Jones to pay parents $45.2 million in Sandy Hook case.
Yeah, so the original article I sent was him paying them 4 million, and then 2 days later it bumped up to over 11 times that original amount. And basically, Alex Jones is paying for damages, or I guess stress caused to the family of the Sandy Hook people, which he was one of the first people to introduce this idea of mass killings and attacks like this being what's called a false flag. So essentially, like a state ally, or like a government puppet would
Right.
come in and kill a bunch of people so that the media can blame it on a specific type of person. And he was just megaphoning this idea that there were no dead children, nothing happened. These people are being paid off by the government, and of course, all these people, if these dozens of parents that were affected by their children being murdered were like, this isn't okay. And even though this all happened, Sandy Hook happened in what, like 2011,
It's been a while,
2012
yeah.
maybe.
It's been a
Like
while.
this happened about a decade ago.
Yeah.
Uh, but legal things like this can take a long time to happen. Just gathering of evidence and
Well,
data and whatnot.
and I mean, the thing is, it's not simply that he lied about the kids getting killed, because that would fall under First Amendment. It's that he basically enticed his followers to harass them, to harass the parents.
Yeah,
And further, this past week, his lawyer, or maybe the week before last, but his lawyer accidentally, in air quotes, sent the full conversations that Jones's lawyer and Jones had to the parents of the Sandy Hook kids.
wow.
He sent their entire phone conversations. Now, I say accidental in quotes, but I mean, how does one do that accidentally? You know what I mean? Like, how does that happen? Which is, if I'm being honest, that's a little scary. I would not like to be represented by a lawyer and then like be afraid that he could turn on me sometime
You
during the
could just
case.
leak all that private information. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's kind of their job to like not do that. But I say, it's I really don't have. I have no sympathy for Jones. He's a lunatic, and he
He
deserves
is.
to
Yeah.
pay these parents millions in damages. I hope that it really was accidental, just like an absolute blunder and not intentional, because otherwise it's kind of scary. What else was it?
Yeah.
But regarding the concept of false flags, another thing about this case. So the phone call getting, or the phone conversations getting leaked, implicated Jones in multiple counts of perjury, apparently, which is in part why the pay, or the payout, whatever, got hiked up. He also, what was something else that happened? Well, now I'm drawing a blank.
Uh-oh.
He also made fun of the judge on his show, which also caused her to increase his pay.
Yeah. 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 If there's one thing you don't want to do is talk shit about a judge, ever, ever.
Yeah, and so yeah, she increased it more because he made fun of her on his show, which, I mean, this man does not know when to just shut up. He really doesn't.
He does not. He really does not.
He
He doesn't
just
know when
digs
to
the
keep
hole
his mouth
deeper.
shut. Yeah.
Well, anyway, so on the concept of, so false flags are really interesting, like as a concept. Now, in this instance, this is just dumb. Like, the government has no desire. I think even many people on the left don't want guns to be taken away.
Right.
People on the right don't want guns taken away, and a lot of people on the left don't want guns taken away. So, you think the politicians are going to take guns away? Heck no. It's extremely unpopular. So the idea that this hoax, was manufactured, or this was manufactured as a hoax to take away guns, it's just stupid. It makes no sense. When you take a brief look at,
I still think a lot of people on
politics.
the left want to take guns away, or at least certain types of guns. But like,
Some do,
As I'm-
yes. Some certainly do. Yeah, I agree with you. But there are a lot of people on the left also, and I'll be honest, I don't, I'm not entirely sure where I stand with regard to all weapons, with regard to all guns, but But I mean, that's kind of what I mean. Like, I'm not entirely sure if you should take away all guns. And I think a lot of other people, at the very least, feel that way. Like, should we? Eh. But certainly, a lot of people think you shouldn't.
I think very very bad things were to happen to the state of the American people if we were to be disarmed. That's just me though. I think that the American government has at least a somewhat healthy fear of its people, especially after January 6th. Now, I don't agree
Yeah.
with what the people on January 6th did by any means, because I think that what they did with the
Right.
wrong intentions behind
Right.
them. They were, in my opinion, they were cringe and not based. Because
Right.
they, but
Well,
but
I agree
yeah,
with that. Yeah.
but yeah, no. So like,
I don't
I
think you need grenade launchers. I'll say that. Right.
yeah.
We don't need grenade launchers.
Well, as it stands, only rich people can get grenade launchers. Basically, if you want like the really destructive stuff like that, like if you want like a fully auto belt fed machine gun or a rocket launcher, you have to have like really really expensive licenses to get that take like a couple of years to get through like the bureau, the ATF that is,
Yeah.
and so yeah, a lot of those really dangerous stuff was like if you want a tank, if you want a howitzer, if you want
Right.
a grenade launcher, you have to have go through all this expensive rigmarole and like paperwork and stuff. But the average stuff that's available to the American people is like only like really dangerous, like in like the wrong hands.
Sure.
Like, um, I don't know. That's all I'm gonna say.
Well, and see, I agree with you. It should be hard to get all that kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah, I
The
mean, ideally, I mean, I think that if people weren't evil and fucked up, that maybe we could all be trusted with stuff like grenade launchers. But no,
Yeah.
if you let any Joe Schmo get access on a fucking RPG 7, then
Yeah.
like there's something bad's gonna happen eventually. It's gonna be GTA world out there. It's gonna be like real life Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah.
The whole country would be Florida essentially.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm not entirely sure where I fall with respect to that whole argument. What I can observe is that presently, objectively, we have no way to de-arm the populace. Just broadly, right? We really
Yes.
don't have any way to do that right now. So even if I were to say, yeah, guns should go, it doesn't even matter because there's no way to do it as of right now.
The
There's-
police alone couldn't do it.
Right, exactly.
There are simply put too many people that with too many guns.
There are
a
more
lot
guns
of
than people in the U.S.
exactly. There are a lot of people that have more guns than they know what to do with, and some people live. I shit you not, in compounds. Like they build
Yeah.
a fucking fortress for themselves, pretty much. And when it comes down to it, a lot of that would ended up being the National Guard that would have to take the brunt force of
Right.
having to do that confiscation. And a lot of those are just regular civilians, which, in all honesty, at least quite a few of them didn't really plan on actually doing any military like combat service.
Right.
So if you tell them, hey, so there's this guy that's got probably about, say, about 200 guns, a couple dozen cronies, and several 100,000 rounds of ammunition out here in this compound in the mountains. Y'all guys got to go take him out. A lot of people are going to be like, that sounds like fucking suicide. I'm not going to do that.
Right.
Like, yeah. Like, National Guard members are not going to want to go do that sort of shit. I mean, some of them might. Some of them might be like, well, it's my duty to my country. But, like most rational people would be like, that sounds like a very bad idea. Even if you had, like, helicopters and shit.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. There's definitely no way at present to disarm the population in any realistic way. But anyway, the thing about false flags is Sandy Hook is not a false flag, or was not. It just wasn't objectively, and it's stupid to claim that it was. There have actually been false flag attacks in American history, and there have been plots about false flags. There were actually plots during JFK's presidency about attacks along the southeastern coast, which we could then blame on Cuba, but were actually executed by CIA operatives. So it never went through, of course, but that was a legitimate plan that crossed his desk. So, the Vietnam War was started with a false flag attack.
The Gulf of Tonkin, yeah.
The Gulf of Tonkin. The USS Maddox went into the Gulf of Tonkin and fired on North Korea. And then we claimed they attacked us.
You mean North Vietnam?
North Vietnam. I'm sorry, I'm an idiot.
Yeah, yeah,
Went in
yeah.
and fired on North Vietnam and destroyed, I think, 3 of their watercraft, 3 boats, basically.
Right.
And then the only damage that the USS Maddox took was like a single bullet hole in its side,
Right.
basically. And we claimed the North Vietnamese attacked us, and that launched us into the Vietnam War, right? Like that's a false flag attack. That's an actual false flag attack.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's far more
Yeah.
interesting in my opinion than claiming up, that an elementary school in which a bunch of kids died was a false flag attack.
And you want to know what's something that's really weird and very, very sad and grim? That well, I mean, I'm sure you might not want to know that, but at the time when this happened, I was on a school trip to Natchitoches, and I remember seeing the news of this and footage of it in the news while I was in like a coffee shop or something, and I was in middle school, right? And I remember thinking, "Oh, this isn't that big a deal. This happens all the day in America. This should blow over within a week." And then sure enough, it was still being talked about a month later. I was like, "Damn, maybe this isn't that normal." like I was so used to just the idea of like just people being slaughtered in the street that I didn't even really bat too much of an eye at it. Like that's really, in hindsight, that's very, very sad and scary.
Well, I agree. I mean, the Uvalde shooting got way more press than school shootings normally get, as, again, as horrible as that sounds.
Yeah.
But it got a lot of press because of the incompetence of the police, right?
Right.
It wasn't even because, like an unusually large number of kids got killed or anything like that. It was just because the police were so incompetent. And
right.
I don't know if they've released the body cam footage at this point, honestly.
I've seen footage from inside the school, like from the school security cameras.
Yeah.
And basically, it's just a bunch of these people like cornering the shooter and then dicking around in the hallway for half an hour and setting up a defensive position and then just kind of like screwing off and then not, actually engaging him, which is very, very frustrating to see when they have like 20 people there to take down this one dude. Not any of them are willing to risk their life to save any of these children. It's like, yeah, these people do not feel a duty to protect or serve your ass.
I'm honestly surprised because I really expected that the reason they were not releasing the body cam footage was police had accidentally shot some kid. That was really...
Oh my gosh, that would be the biggest snafu ever.
I mean, you think about it though, I would really not be, because by the point that the Uvalde police had basically hired a legal team to protect them from having to release their body cam footage, because by that point they were like, oh well, the door to the school was locked. No, it wasn't. It'd gone in, or oh well, we didn't know where.
What door to a school is going to be locked in the middle of daytime during school hours?
Right, exactly. Or what did they say? Like, we had gone in, we knew where he was, except they did, but like didn't do anything about it, and they like arrested and tased parents who tried to get in.
Exactly. They stood outside to try to stop people from going in there to save their children.
They actually, and another story broke later after this, that the police harassed a mom. So there was a mom who was handcuffed, and I guess I don't know if she was still in handcuffs when she did this, but she managed to get in. They had like handcuffed her at some point. She managed to get in the school, rescue her 2 kids, and then escape with them.
Wow.
And the cops basically harassed her for like weeks after that because she
Wow.
showed them up.
What cowards. What cowards.
And so at that point, so basically by the time, and so I didn't know about this at the time, but by the point that the police had hired a legal team to prevent the body cam footage from getting out, I was like, I'm pretty sure we're about to hear that they shot a kid.
Yeah.
By accident.
Cops want to act like they're fucking pit bulls, but in reality, these cops aren't even Chihuahuas. At least these are fucking Dachshunds or fucking Pomeranian. Because at least these Chihuahuas have a bunch of fight in them. Dachshunds are more docile.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I was expecting. I haven't heard anything yet, but who knows?
Honestly, yeah.
Anyway, next story.
Yeah, yeah. So the next story is a little bit of a positive
Nice.
story, thankfully, because things have been very doom and gloom so far.
Yeah.
um, so the Great Barrier Reef is showing signs of recovery. Australia takes steps to combat climate change by passing bill to reduce carbon emissions by 43%. Now, from what I read into this, basically, would you believe it or not, their conservative party is very much against doing something to combat climate change. For
Wow. Who would
whatever
have thunk
reason,
it?
they don't want to. Or oh, I'm sorry, no, this is their liberal party. In some countries, their liberal party is what we would consider to be conservative. So that's the
Ah.
case with
Okay.
Australia.
They're
So
they're
they're
their version of a conservative party, basically.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
They were very much against this, but basically, they want to reduce carbon emissions by 43%, back down to what emissions were like in 2005. They plan to do that by 2030,
Okay.
and to be carbon neutral by 2050. Now that's all good said and done,
Sure.
but will that stop the acidification of our ocean? Probably not. But then again, Australia is the third largest exporter of oil in the world after Saudi Arabia and Russia. So they play they play a large role in the manufacturing and shipping of these oil products. And
Mm-hmm.
I was reading something recently that said that a lot of the so what's it? What is? Oh, sorry, I have it linked later. But a lot of the energy involved in you know getting oil to places, there's a lot of energy and fuel spent in delivering energy and fuel,
Sure.
and a lot of that would be cut by using more renewable resources like wind and solar, for example.
Okay. So this is really cool. I really like this story. For anyone who's not aware, we'll just talk about this for a moment. So the corals, in particular, suffer from what's called bleaching, and this is a major problem that is affecting the Great Barrier Reef, as well as lots of other coral reefs and atolls around the world. So, basically, as our atmosphere heats up, this in turn, due to the pumping of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, this in turn causes our oceans to heat up. But not only are our oceans heating up, they're also, as you said, being acidified. Because as there's a greater proportion of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, this also dissolves into the oceans in greater quantities in the form of carbonic acid. And so, with greater acid content in the ocean, this lowers the pH below what a lot of organisms need to survive. Because you see, a lot of organisms have calcium carbonate shells, and
Right.
that dissolves in acid. And so a lot of organisms are under stress, acid stress in the oceans. Well, so are corals. They have calcium carbonate skeletons also. But corals, a lot of them also have symbiotic relationships with algae, such as dinoflagellates. One particular genus is called Symbiodinium, which tends to live in coral. It's symbiotic relationship. Well, Symbiodinium, when it is expelled from coral when the ambient ocean heats up and acidifies too much. And there's loads and loads and loads of research on this. And so these corals expel their algae. So the algae is doing photosynthesis, it's taking in light, like algae does, and it's doing photosynthesis. It is producing these carbohydrates, which it can then give to the coral, and the coral can give its nitrogenous products to the algae, right? So they have this
Right.
relationship where they're giving stuff to each other. Well, when the ocean heats up and acidifies too much, the coral expels its algae, and then the coral cannot grow properly. Now, in addition to that, so the coral's already not doing as well because it doesn't have its algal partner, which it needs, but not necessarily will kill it. But there are other factors. There are things called bioeroders. There are lots of fish and invertebrates that eat coral. And if these corals can't grow as quickly because they don't have their algal partners, then they are going to be eroded. So one, they get bleached, and that might kill them off on its own. But even if it doesn't, if that doesn't kill them immediately, they can be eaten away by parrotfish and various sea stars and other animals that eat coral, and so it just
All right,
destroys coral reefs.
all right, Jackson, keep talking about this for a couple minutes. I have to go to the bathroom real quick.
Oh, that was the end of my spiel, pretty much.
Okay, well, I just vamped for about another 2 minutes.
All right, okay. Um, well, so I actually did a video on this topic on my YouTube channel, Jackson Wheat, which is titled "Ocean Acidification," and it compares how the ocean has become increasingly acidified over time within the last few decades as a result of increased greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, which then dissolve into the ocean, which is quite sad. But maybe we can get our emissions down, and then we can rebuild our coral reefs. That'd be very nice. I actually haven't read the story. Blake picked this out, but this is very good news because a lot of the paper I've read a number of papers on ocean acidification and on coral bleaching as a result, and it's very sad. It's very, very tragic, especially because coral reefs serve in part as a home for various fish, at least for some portion of their life cycle. And a lot of communities on like islands and coastal communities rely on coral reefs, and they fish, right? They eat fish as a large part of their diet. Well, when these reefs die, the fish can't live there. They don't have that source of food that they normally would have, and this then impacts us. Even though we don't live on the coral reefs, we hunt fish that live in these coral reefs for at least some part of their life cycle, and then these communities become impoverished as a result. So it really does affect us in the long run.
All right, I'm back.
Welcome back. All right. Starship Troopers at 25. Paul, was it Verhoeven's 1997 sci-fi classic is satire at its best.
Yes, so Starship Troopers recently just turned 25 recently. And you have or have not seen this movie?
I have not, I don't think.
What? I could have swore we watched it together.
Starship Troopers. I've seen Spaceballs. Does that count?
No. It might still be on Netflix right now. You should really watch it if you get the chance.
I think I've seen it.
So it's a very strange premise. So the premise is that this is I guess sometime in the future, and the entirety of planet Earth has been united under one fascist dictatorship called the Federation, and so all these people from Buenos Aires, Argentina, are they enlist in the Space Marines, or essentially whatever.
Oh, is that I'm doing my part?
Exactly, yeah.
That comes from,
so it's a whole allegory for fascism and statism, and during training, some asteroid that was sent by this bug alien race wipes out Buenos Aires and millions of people, including their families, and so they end up taking the fight to the bug aliens planet and suffering a whole bunch of losses, but on a Pyrrhic victory they end up winning somehow. But it's a very, very, very good fascism satire. Very good. It's got Neil Patrick Harris in it, a very young Neil Patrick Harris. He plays essentially like a Nazi, and Dean Norris, aka Hank from Breaking Bad. Yeah, he's in it. It's funny because even though this is like 15 years before Breaking Bad airs, he looks exactly the same. He barely looks any younger. He's always looked like an old. He's always looked like an old fat man. He just always will. A fat old white dude.
He's
Bald.
in Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark that came out a couple of years ago. He still looks the exact same. He is not.
Oh yeah, I saw that movie. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. He just does not age.
But yeah, if you have not seen it, then we should definitely watch it together sometime.
Absolutely, I'm down.
I'm pretty sure it's on. Pretty sure it's on our to watch list.
Yeah, if it isn't, I will add it. So,
Yeah.
all right. Uh,
Right.
Northrop Grumman received $3.29 billion to develop a missile defense system that could protect the entire U.S. from ballistic missiles.
All right. So this story was basically talked about as if they were trying to establish sort of like an Iron Dome in America, the same thing that they have around Israel. When in reality, from what I read, this is more of like just like a small update to our existing systems, which includes about $200,000 worth of money that is sort of unaccounted for, which is most likely just being used to bribe politicians to, promote companies that will make, give this company more money. But yeah. So there's gonna be a serious update to our defense systems in the upcoming future, which I think is I don't know, something to take note of.
Okay. Nice. This kind of reminds me of like the Star Wars project that was like commissioned under Reagan, or was
Exactly.
attempted to commission. I don't actually know if any part of it like ever saw the light of day. I just remember hearing or reading about like, this was a thing that we considered. I don't know if it ever came to fruition.
It did,
Did
and
it? Okay.
all it did was piss off the Soviets. But this is sort of intended, or this sort of announcement is intended to do the same sort of thing. We want to try to show like a global, like on the global stage, that we are like a force to be reckoned with. That like we have defenses strong enough to withstand attack. Because on I guess like the northern part of Canada near the Arctic Circle, we just have all these like radars lined up to detect IBCMs coming from Russia.
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know, Ringo. What do you think?
If you're mean to Yoko, you're out of the band. No.
None of the band.
Okay, well that's interesting. I don't know. I just hadn't heard about this. So okay.
And the next story is pretty interesting too. Goodyear and the tire company is working on airless metal tires for GM's Moon buggy. So on the coming potential trips from to the moon
Because we
in the
really need to go
future.
back.
I know, right? As if there's a whole bunch of rich, fertile resources there that we can, exploit, which there aren't, as far as I know of. But
This is really, I guess, the next like stage is it's not just getting missions to the moon and also Mars, but like, unmanned missions where you put in like send the car to whatever coordinates and it just drives by itself. That's kind of the next step, really. So.
But yeah, Goodyear is trying to make some fancy metal tires with no air involved because
Nice.
Lord heaven forbid having tires that you need to air up when there's no humans around. So they're just like, screw it, we'll just make the tires out of metal. All metal, no air, no rubber, no any of that.
Yeah. Sure, fair enough. Study finds world can switch to 100% renewable energy and earn back its investment in just 6 years.
Yes, so this was a study brought out from, I want to say, Stanford.
Okay.
And just to I guess get the ball rolling, I had a couple screenshots here from some very important points from the article,
Okay.
just to show how easily obtainable this is, and yet why most people won't switch to it in the first place. So essentially, TLDR, this is very easily done and very profitable. However, it's going to take several like $100 trillions of dollars worth of money. Now, $62 trillion worth of money to get it all done, which is a big temporary investment most countries are not willing to take. So here it reads, one of the main reasons for this is that the combustion-based sorry, 1 second. My dog just came into my room. All right, goodbye. Sorry. I guess I didn't close my door all the way. I just heard the door open and my dog walked in. And I'm just like, hey, buddy, what are you doing? Anyway, Anyway, one of the main reasons for this is that the combustion-based energy systems most countries use require quite a lot of energy just to function. This is what I was talking about earlier. And switching to a clean renewable energy system, Professor Jacobson states the worldwide energy usage would go down by 56% immediately. The savings is due to the efficiency of clean energy over combustion systems, as well as the efficiency of electrified industry, as there would no longer be need to spend energy obtaining fossil fuels. Again, what I was talking about with the transport. And the good news doesn't end there. A clean renewable energy system reduces the cost per energy unit by an average of 12%, which results in a 63% lower annual energy cost. So, the cost of energy is much, much cheaper. Of course, there are also many health benefits to clean energy systems that could cut down on pollution. But with an estimated $62 trillion needed to update systems in 145 countries, we know more than half the countries on the planet, which produce 99.7% of the world's carbon dioxide, the price tag is not small. But the switch to clean renewable energy gives an immediate savings of $11 trillion per year. So already after 6 years, you're already paying for that itself. This means that the world could offset the upfront costs in as little as 6 years if these countries were just willing to make the change. So
That's kind of
this
amazing.
week, it is. So $62 trillion is not cheap. That's so much money. That's enough money to make your head spin forever for the rest of your life. But it's not undoable.
Yeah.
It's not impossible.
Sure.
It would take the entire planet to try to take this thing seriously and get stuff done.
We just have
Which
to pool
I
our
guess
resources, yeah.
exactly, which we unfortunately are not ready to do yet to save our species.
Yeah, that is
Or
really
any other
interesting.
species. If we aren't willing to save other important species, and somehow we still aren't even yet ready to save our own, like we don't have our heads in the right places. I feel like.
No, I agree with that, especially when we have whole parties that are bought by oil companies,
Right.
political parties. Um, I mean, that is a very hopeful message at the very least. I
We
do
could
think
do it if we really wanted to.
it is, yeah, it is certainly the case that we could do it. I think, however, again, I think we typically agree on this. The way to move forward is not really so much with like wind and solar and hydroelectric. It's going to be with nuclear. That's going to be our best shot at
Well, yeah,
good
by
sustainable
and
energy.
by, year for year, that is like the best, cleanest way to
Will
do
it
it.
be ridiculously expensive? Yes. Again, short term, yes, it's going to be expensive. But if we want to survive as a species, we kind of need to do it.
That's
So,
the thing. No one thinks in this sort of like lizard brain way of must preserve species, must pass on genes. All humans are innately selfish. We only think about our own personal lifespans. So like we don't think about the future of our children or their children or their children. We think about how can I make my life as cushy as possible and what can I do to keep that safe and anyone else after I'm dead be damned because I don't care because I'm dead. You know. And it's that sort of selfish thinking that has landed us in this place where we are. I mean, look at movies like Mad Max, for example, where in the 1970s they're basically setting up the future, a post-apocalyptic future, which is pretty much set in place to most likely happen. Not most likely, but could happen, wherein a nuclear war sets out over resources. Like I said, the upcoming resource wars. Stay tuned for 2050 to 2070, where some sort of inkling of that is probably going to happen. Um, but yeah, the whole Mad Max universe is revolved around resource wars over gasoline and water, which are already sort of happening. I mean, in countries like Libya, for example, it was either Libya or Liberia. Uh, Gasoline is so abundant; it's about the equivalent of 25 cents per gallon, whereas water is the equivalent of about $8 per gallon. So
yeah.
there are some countries where you could get fuel real cheap, but when it comes to getting water to drink and make food with and all that stuff, you're out of luck.
Yeah, there was an episode of some more news not too long ago where they talked about water shortages, which is no topic I think scares me as much as the topic of water shortage,
Yes.
because like, you know, you'll survive, or we will survive uh, global warming. We can survive it, to an extent, of course, but like for a good long while, we can survive global warming. Will we absolutely destroy a lot of infrastructure of many coastal countries? Yeah, absolutely. But will we as a species survive? Yeah, we'll survive that. Um, would we survive running out of water? No.
No.
No, that's game over for the species. And so I don't even know if I watched the full video because it just the I've read you oh god, what is it? Is it the what sea is it? Is it it's not the Caspian Sea.
The Aral Sea.
The
The
Aral
Aral
Sea,
Sea.
yeah, which is a
And the
lake now.
Caspian Sea, too.
Well,
And the
sure.
Caspian Sea. Well, the Caspian Sea is very, very slowly shrinking, too.
But the Aral Sea is a lake now basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um you can look at the like satellite images of it over the past few decades. It's
And you know
scary.
what's funny? All models for climate change point to by like 2050 or 2070, which is funny because 2050 is the point where a lot of people are setting their like goal for it's like climate change fixing. It's like by
Mhm.
2050 we should have it all figured out, but it's like our models also show that by that point it's still going to be fucking too late. That a lot of people are going to be moving and trying to settle and colonize Canada and Russia. So,
Because
uh,
it'll be warmer.
exactly, all the places where right now it's frozen and like a tundra is going to be rich, fertile, green, temperate land in about 50 years. So, yeah, that's on the horizon. A lot of people are going to be moving to Canada and Russia, or if they knew what was good for them, they'd already be setting up settlements now. But anyway, yeah,
Equatorial countries are going to be like uninhabitable because of how hot it's going to be.
exactly. There are pretty much going to be Mad Max where everything is water and gasoline. But Canada has the most. I think it's something along the lines of the most freshwater lakes of any country on Earth. Like Canada has a bunch of water, and as it's been warming up, um, I don't know if have you heard of growler bears.
I don't think so. Do tell.
So polar bears, I believe, are the world's largest bear,
Okay.
and they live in the polar most northernmost regions of Canada, and grizzly bears live in the more green areas below them. Now, as polar bears are pushed out of the Arctic colder regions, they end up commingling with these grizzly bears in the
Hmm.
mainland. This has led to a hybrid species called growler bears, which are closer to the size of a polar bear, very large, but have a bit more of a brown aspect to them. So they are a mixture between um, the far more aggressive and deadly polar bear and the a bit more, I guess, sort of like dumpy and dim-witted grizzly bear. And
That's nice. Love to see it.
yeah, so they've been turning up in towns in the in the northernmost regions of Canada. These crazy hybrid bears that we're creating through climate change. And as polar bears are pushed more and more south, you're going to be seeing more and more of these hybrids. And I just think it's a crazy way how human. It's another crazy way how human influence is affecting nature and biology, and its course that it's running like at the same time.
Yeah. Um. Ready to move to the next story?
Sure.
Rick Scott says militant left wing Americans are a greater threat to the country than all the wars the U.S. has ever fought.
So I just thought this was funny because like Rick Scott is he's a goblin
It's a
in the
goblin.
simplest way to put it. He looks like Agent 47 from the Hitman games. Um, he's tall, and from what I've seen pictures of him lately, he looks almost jaundiced. Like he's very yellow looking. Um,
Do we need to check on his kidneys? Is that
his liver, that's what I'm
his liver?
thinking. His kidneys or his liver. He seems like he's having multiple organ failure. But when I first read this uh, article, or at least the headline, I thought, first off, this is very ridiculous. Second off, I wish we had militant left wing
Right?
groups already have the Proud Boys and all these neo Nazis and fascists. Like, well, what does the left have? Antifa? What, we're gonna throw some bricks and some Molotovs? That's it. Like, the left is the only left wing people that I've seen that are like have been like embracing like the use of like guns and stuff, and like as far as proactive like political movements has been black people. There's been
Yeah.
a lot of very powerful political movements ever since the Black Panthers to keep black people armed, and a lot of the first measures of gun control in America have been targeted were in California, and they were targeted towards disarming black people because Black Panthers were bringing guns to
Kel
their political
Surprise.
demonstrations. Exactly, Black Panthers were bringing guns to political demonstrations, so they thought California sought to disarm these people because people were getting radicalized there, and so they were like, "What's the quickest way we can get these guns out of black people's hands?" And so they just passed gun control regulation, and yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that is pretty crazy. I I I don't remember who it was, but like the framing militant left wing versus militant right wing. I mean, what's the militant left wing? Like, we want people to have health care. What's the militant right wing? We want the Jews to be put into camps.
We want to bring back slavery and lynchings and Jim Crow.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
like, these groups aren't. That's why I always get so frustrated when like people say, "Oh, I'm a centrist." It's like, come on, or they try to both sides everything. It's like, no, no, no. There's a very clear difference here. You can't just both sides it.
it depends on where your morals lie. Like,
Okay, look, for
honestly,
most of the things we've talked about, for instance, I mean, like gun control. Okay, fine, I'll let you have that one. Like, there's more than one side to gun control, but climate change, no, no. There's no both sides to climate change. Um, there's no both sides to health care. There's no both sides to really a lot of stuff. In my opinion, at least stuff that we tend to talk about on this show, anyways.
yeah, and I won't lie. Gun control is an extremely complicated
Sure.
issue. I'd argue it might be even the most complicated political issue to face like the modern like Western culture like in decades, especially with the uptick of mass shootings. It's like it's something that especially in America is so heavily bred into our the impetus for our country, being the the Second Amendment to our
Mm-hmm.
Constitution when the Bill of Rights came out. Like it was obviously very important to the founding fathers. Yet, gun control itself has a very racist history that is brought on about but the NRA, which is heavily supporters of
Yeah.
this. Which I'll be honest, I'm a decently pro-gun leading person, and I don't like the NRA
Yeah.
because of their historical standpoints and what they do. There are far better, actually proactive and level-minded pro-gun organizations within the
Sure.
USA. Gun Owners of America, GOA comes to mind. They're a lot more sort of like actual practical, like not super right wing centric like gun organization.
Right.
So there are left wing people out there that like guns. I mean,
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm one of them. There's this whole subreddit called liberal gun owners, and a lot of the more libertarian and like I guess I've been finding more right leaning subreddits that I see. A lot of them are like, let's see what liberal gun owners thinks about this. Let's see what type of mental gymnastics they pull. And it's like, it's okay. Some people can be liberal and agree with all liberal points except for guns. And I'm one of those people.
Yeah.
I agree with most liberal ideas. Like, I wouldn't consider myself racist or homophobic. I think that we should have basic universal health care and paid maternity leave. And, there should be legal drugs.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that means that anyone should be restricted from having guns. If those were all to happen, I don't think that should also be a world where people are disarmed, because that's just my personal viewpoint. But
Sure. Sure. Fair
yeah,
enough. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's like the horseshoe theory. You go far enough left, you get your guns back. because they also want
Yeah,
to overthrow the government, but for a different reason. You know?
that's what I'm saying. Because like literally, so like you remember our fucking high school history teacher, Mr. Wells.
Yeah.
He was like a hardcore Marxist, and I have one of his old books because when he was leaving the school, he was getting rid of a lot of his old books from his library. And one of his
Mm-hmm.
books that I have is this heavily annotated book by him about Marxism.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the quotes that he had underlined was something about the proletariat being armed, and I'm just like,
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
hell yeah, dude! Like, there can be no revolution if you're fighting with sticks and stones. You got to fight fire with fire, you know.
Yeah. The only thing you have to lose are your chains. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yes, exactly, exactly. The only thing you have to lose are your chains.
Yeah. That was a. I believe that was Marx. Um. All right. Here we go. What's in it for climate? Democrats' big bill puts billions toward. Do you have that one pulled open?
Oh yeah, okay. So I reopened this earlier today or
Okay.
a couple hours ago, and I forgot why I pulled this. To be completely honest,
Well, it was
um,
they passed this legislation and it's really big. It's not just climate. It's like infrastructure and a bunch of other stuff and healthcare. But yeah, it's a big spending bill that the Democrats managed to pass like a couple days ago.
okay.
I've heard about it. I have not read the details on it, but it's a big deal apparently, from what I understand, because the tie-breaking vote was Kamala in the Senate. So,
Right. Okay. Okay.
but yeah, a really big spending bill in an election year, you know. So yeah,
Right. Right.
that's a big deal. Um, oh
And
geez,
the last.
you know what? I'll let you
So
take that one. Go ahead, buddy.
yeah. So I'll pronounce it the American way a couple times, but then I'll pronounce it the French way just to not be too crass. So there's a town in France called Pussy. It's spelt the American way, Pussy. It's pronounced Pissy, Pissy in French. That's from what I've seen.
Mhm.
Pissy. Um, so there is a place in France. It's in sort of like a more rural area in the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
From what I've seen on the map, it's kind of in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's funny, and the people in France call themselves pussies or pussies. They call themselves pussies, and I just thought this was funny because it's like if there's it comes from the Roman word pussius, which means the owner. Or it was the name of the owner of this territory back in Roman
Sure.
times. His name was Pussius.
Okay.
But
And this was
that's
because this was back when like the French were the Gauls, basically.
the Gauls. Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. So this is the name of the Roman ruler of this area, and
Right.
it's north of a French town called Les Chers. It's at the slope of Mount Balachat, and northwest of Moutiers. I'm probably butchering those names, but um, it's a pretty rural part of France, and it's funny. I just thought this bared mentioning because I thought I was pondering this idea of these people that have lived here for hundreds of years, and I'm imagining the first tourist to come to this town, and them having these people welcoming them in, wondering why would this person come from so far, no matter what country they're from. If it speaks English, they know what that word means in English.
Right.
And
They probably do. Yeah.
and them having to try to explain to these people that the reason they traveled this far to this obscure location in this country is because their town shares the name for English slang for vagina. I
Yeah.
just think that that's very, very funny.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's like when people steal the like the street signs. That's like 69th Street, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah, or there was where we in Shreveport. There's Stoner Avenue.
Yeah.
That street sign gets stolen a lot.
Which we went to school on Stoner Avenue.
We went to school like 2 blocks away from, I kid you not, the corner of Stoner Avenue and Easy Street.
Yes, we did.
Which we saw heavy graffiti of people graffitiing that stopped that street sign because I thought they were like, yeah, it was Stoner Avenue and Easy Street. Like,
Yeah.
isn't that pretty funny?
Yeah, what a time to be alive. Huh.
But yes, the search for pussy is over. It is right under our nose the whole time. I need not look any further.
And we still can't get to it. Anyway.
If we still can't get to it, it's still unobtainable. So it eludes us like the mystery that it is. Somewhere buried deep in the mountains of France. It's waiting for us all along.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, man.
Anyways. Alright. You want to call it?
Yeah, I think that's about it. I mean, that is all we got for this week, after all.
Yeah. Sounds about right. Well, Trump got raided at Mar-a-Lago, so that happened.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, he
But,
did.
And
They broke into my safe. That wasn't cool. They did not like they broke into my safe.
okay,
He was really upset about that.
Oh, I'm sure he was, but so I saw an article, and I'll make this brief, right before we started this, because right after I finished my other show, I saw someone mention papers that he took, classified documents, may have been relating to nuclear weapons that he just had in a safe at Mar-a-Lago.
My God, what a fool.
And so, yeah, that happened. So anyway, there's that. Fun times. All right. I'll let you play us out.
Well, anyway, if anyone listened to this, thank you so much. I hope that what we heard today was entertaining, despite all the trauma. But anyway, yeah, thank you for listening. Hopefully, you can tune in again next week, and we can be entertaining for you again. And that is it. Later, guys.